Hello again. If I had suggested 20 years ago that it would be possible to persuade a large portion of the British population to stand outside their homes at a certain time each week and bang pots and pans together to make as much noise as they could, I rather suspect that people would have laughed at such an idea. It would have sounded utterly absurd to think of people taking saucepans from their kitchen and then going to the front door and clashing a couple of them against each other to make a noise reminiscent of a Chinese funeral. I mention Chinese funerals, incidentally, not as some random anti-Oriental slur, but because at traditional funerals of that community, pots and pans are indeed banged together in order to scare off any evil spirits who might be lurking near the funeral procession. What do viewers think? Would they have believed 20 years ago that we in Britain would have carried on in such an irrational fashion across the whole of the kingdom? What about the bizarre ritual of banging elbows with each other instead of shaking hands like normal people? One no longer sees such conduct, of course, and if I'm introduced to a man, I just shake his hand rather than twisting my arm round and trying to present him instead with my elbow. Suppose that 20 years ago somebody had told you that this strange custom would be officially sanctioned by the British government. What about staying indoors and avoiding fresh air and sunshine in order to avoid falling ill? Now that really would have sounded loopy, wouldn't it? The best way to remain free of viruses and stray germs is to get as much fresh air and sunshine as possible. The ultraviolet rays in sunlight act as a disinfectant, you see, and kill germs. Suppose I told you that one day the police would patrol beaches and threaten sunbathers with prosecution unless they went home and stayed indoors. Would that have been plausible 20 years ago? What about throwing open all the windows in an old person's home in the middle of winter? Sounds like a good idea, or not? I mention these things to show that there is literally nothing that people will not do if the government tell them that it is sensible and will keep them safe. Absolutely nothing. Banging two saucepans together as a way of warding off the plague? Yes, we'll do that. Avoiding fresh air and sunshine to keep us healthy? Of course. The COVID business taught us all some very useful lessons, but these were as nothing when compared to the lesson which our rulers took home from the whole affair. The take home message for British governments was simply that they can get people to do anything, to believe anything, to swallow anything at all, no matter how mad. The COVID hysteria has been over for years, but do not suppose for a moment that our leaders have forgotten what they learned during that extraordinary episode. They learned that we are a flock of gullible sheep, and that the best way to get us to do what we are told is to give us a good scare, to threaten us with death, and then issue instructions which it is claimed will prevent our deaths. This tactic is ready and waiting. Obviously, there's nothing new about this. 100 years ago, the American political essayist H.L. Mencken said that the whole aim of practical politics is to keep the populace alarmed and hence clamorous to be led to safety by an endless series of hobgoblins, most of them imaginary. Nothing could more neatly sum up politics in general and the COVID business in particular. Always watch out for the next hobgoblin that our government is using to try and scare us, and you will be able to keep one step ahead of the news and understand what is really going on in our country. Ignore the specific details of the supposed menace and focus upon what our leaders hope to gain from promoting it. There is no better object lesson than to study the COVID epidemic.